Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone. I'd like to call the Board of Directors meeting tonight, Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 to order. And please join me in a pledge of allegiance if you can. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which stands
which stands
one nation
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much for putting the flag up there, Melinda. I appreciate it. Okay, and then we'll move on to our next agenda item is roll call. Melinda, will you please call roll for us?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. All right, and I know we have some new members with us. So if for some reason you haven't been moved over as a panelist yet, I will check at the end of roll to make sure that you're in attendance. Also, if you're an alternate joining us and your member is not here, I will say the member's name first, and then I will say the alternate's name. All right, here we go. Julie Duran-Mullica, Adams County. Kathy Henson, Adams County. Jeff Baker, Arapahoe County. Rhonda Fields, Arapahoe County. Claire Levy, Boulder County. Ashley Stolzman, Boulder County. Austin Ward, Broomfield. James Marsh Holshin, Broomfield. Rebecca Lloyd, Clear Creek County. Jody Hartman Ball, Clear Creek County. Adam Paul, Denver. Nicholas Williams, Denver. Kevin Flynn, Denver.
Apparently the first one here.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Van Winkle, Douglas County. Abe Layden, Douglas County. Susan Behrman, Gilpin County. Andy Kerr, Jefferson County.
Here.
There we go, thank you. Sharon Davis, Arvada. Brad Rupert, Arvada. Allison Coombs, Aurora.
Present.
Thank you. Larry Vidum, Bennett. Royce Pindell, Bennett. David Spellman, Blackhawk. Nicole Spear, Boulder.
Here.
Thank you. Greg Mills, Brighton. Chris Fiedler, Brighton. Deborah Mulvey, Castle Pines. Roger Hudson, Castle Pines. Jason Gray, Castle Rock. Tim Dietz, Castle Rock. Tammy Maurer, Centennial.
present.
Thank you. Vane, oh, and I'm so sorry if I butcher this. Central City, could you please pronounce your last name for us?
The name is pronounced Playsick, and I'm here.
Playsick, thank you so very much. I appreciate that. Robert Eber, Cherry Hills Village. Susan McGuire, Cherry Hills Village. Stephen Douglas, Commerce City. Susan Noble, Commerce City. Michelle Rogers, Dacono. Adam Moorhead, Dacono. Steve Conklin, Edgewater.
Here, good evening.
Thank you. Othaniel Sierra, Inglewood. Jim Wright, Inglewood. Emily Bayer, Erie.
Present. Good evening.
Awesome, thank you. Linda Montoya, Federal Heights. Sarah Dawn Pearlstein, Federal Heights. Ray Bird, Firestone. Don Cognac, Firestone. Josie Cockrell, Foxfield.
Present.
Awesome, thank you. Wendy Padilla, Frederick.
Here.
Thank you. Lynette Kelsey, Georgetown.
Here.
Rachel Binkley, Glendale. Ryan Toucher, Glendale. Lisa Vitry, Golden. Paul Hazeman, Golden. George Lance, Greenwood Village.
Here.
Chuck Harmon, Idaho Springs. Brian Wong, Lafayette.
Here.
Jeslyn Sherzai, Lakewood.
Present.
Stephen Barr, Littleton.
Here.
Kat Bristow, Lockbuoy. Larry Strock, Lockbuoy.
Present.
Marissa Harmon, Lone Tree.
Evening, present.
Joan Peck, Longmont.
Here.
Judy Kern, Louisville.
Here.
Holly Rogan, Lyons.
Hello.
Colleen Whitlow, Mead.
Present.
Angela Bernhardt, Morrison. Kathleen Bailey, Mountain View.
Here.
Nicole Sterling, Netherlands.
Here.
Richard Kondo, North Glen.
Here.
John Dyack, Parker. Eric Franzen, Parker.
Here. Hi, guys.
Hi. Terrence Kelly, Sheridan.
Here.
Lee Bernardo, Silver Plume. Neil Shaw, Superior. Mike Foster, Superior.
Here. Evening.
Good evening. Justin Martinez, Thornton.
Here.
Sarah Nermella, Westminster.
Here.
Bud Starker, Wheat Ridge.
Hello, I'm here.
Wonderful, thank you. Darius Pakbaz, CDOT. Sally Chafee, CDOT. Bill Saroy, RTD.
Here.
All right, and was there anyone that I called on that wasn't able to respond? If you could please raise your virtual hand. All right, I see Austin has joined us, Austin Ward, Jody Hartman Ball, Clear Creek County. All right, and I believe with that, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Melinda. I'd like to introduce some new members tonight. From the town of Mountain View, Kathleen Bailey, who's with us tonight. Welcome, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to a great family.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and from the town of Castle Rock, Jason Gray, who was the former alternate. Sir, thank you very much for joining us if you're here with us tonight. I'm not sure if you are. All right, and new alternates, Tim Dietz, from the town of Castle Rock, formerly a member. Tim, welcome back as a new alternate, and Eric Franston from the town of Parker. I'm sorry, Eric, if I screwed that up. I'm sorry.
I'm used to it. Franson is the last name.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Eric, for joining us tonight. And with that, we will go to the next agenda items, which is a move to approve agenda. May I have a motion to approve our agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. All in favor? Say aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have an agenda for this evening. I will move it to the next item, which is a report of the chair, and I must read this public hearing announcement for the record. So apologize while I move my papers around. So just for a second. Okay, here we are. The Denver Regional Council of Governments have scheduled a public hearing for May 21st, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. to receive comments on the 2025 Public Engagement Plan, People-Centered Projects and Services. The public hearing will be in a hybrid format at the DRCOG office, 1001 17th Street, Aspen Conference Room on the first floor, Denver, Colorado, 80202, and via Zoom. Further information about the public hearing is currently available on the DRCOG website and was available as of April 6, 2025, at the beginning of the public comment period. We'll move on to the report of a performance engagement committee. I will turn that over to the chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Performance and engagement did not meet today. However, I do want to acknowledge Melinda as well as the DRCOG staff for pulling together a really nice offsite that occurred on Friday and Saturday last week. For those of you who weren't there, the guest speaker were actually mentalists that are Denver based. And of course, their sleight of hand and magic, so to speak, was something that sparked a lot of conversation and discussion, both afterwards and on the following Saturday as well. And then I would also like to just remark on the group exercise that Flo Raitano did. I thought it was really a great opportunity for people to get to know each other, which is very difficult during a standard DRCOG in-person meeting. So those sort of activities that go on during the offsite, I think is extremely valuable and well, much appreciated. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir, very much for your report tonight. I will move on to the report of the Finance and Budget Committee, and that is led by brand new All-Chair Director Sherzai. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening we had another robust session of the Finance and Budget Committee. We approved 7 contracts, many of them relating to the decarbonization program. And then staff presented a preview of the upcoming budget. So there'll be more on this in May. And for members of the Finance and Budget Committee, there'll be a additional meeting for the first part of May, and we will need quorum for that. So just flagging that for folks. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, ma'am, very much for your time tonight, and thank you for stepping up into the role. Next, we'll move on to the report of the executive director, and I will turn it over to our executive director, Doug Rex. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. And good evening, everybody. It's great seeing everyone. I wanted to mention the board retreat also that Director Kondo mentioned. I would just want to thank everybody who was able to attend that retreat this weekend. I think there was a lot of fun. Plus, I think we learned an awful lot from the conversations that we had. We had some very useful exercises that I think went over very well. I want to mention the reverse scavenger hunt that Flo did. I think everybody really enjoyed that, and it's wonderful to learn about the projects that are making a big difference to the lives of people in our community. As part of that, I had mentioned at the last board meeting, we offered the opportunity to enter into the college basketball bracket challenge, the board challenge. And there was a winner, and it was announced at the board retreat. It was Alicia Brown, alternate from Lone Tree, that won it. She just nipped Director Lance, Mayor Lance, by 3 points, Mayor. So you came close. I think you and Alicia had 3 of the final 4 picks, but I think she did just a little better in the early round game. So here's to next year. And that was fun. We had a great time. I think we'll be doing it electronically next year, though. That almost killed me, checking the scores and all those.
But Doug, that means a blind squirrel has a chance if I came close.
I didn't want to say it, Mayor. That's your words, not mine. Oh, shoot. So listen, on the retreat, I just want to just mention to you all that we're planning at least to do something a little differently next year. We're talking about doing a pair exchange with with some region around the country, and we're working with the Performance and Engagement Committee now and narrowing that down to 1, but it looks like it's going to be either Austin, Seattle, Phoenix. I think those are the 3 finalists right now. So stay tuned for all that. There'll be a lot more information that'll come up, but we're hoping to have a final selection sometime by the end of this summer. So stay tuned on that. All right, here it is, the 2025 award celebration. It wouldn't be a meeting without me mentioning it. It's on August 27th. First off, I just wanted to acknowledge that we did extend the deadline for nominations for the various awards until Wednesday, April 30th. So it's an extra week, or actually a couple weeks. So please encourage folks in your community to submit nominations for the MetroVision Award, the Way to Go, or the John V. Christensen Memorial Awards. So it's only as good as the awards that we get, and we do get a lot of wonderful projects and people that we recognize every year. And so if you wouldn't mind passing that along, that would be wonderful. And again, sponsorships are open. Last year we had many community sponsored tables, and we would encourage you all to do that again this year. It's a great opportunity to acknowledge the great work that your staff as well as your fellow council members do, and invite them to a night where we recognize the accomplishments of everything going on in the region. So we strongly encourage you to do that. And if you have any questions, please just reach out to myself or Steve Erickson, and we'll head you in the right direction. So I just wanted to mention something. I'm just going to float it out here in my executive director's report tonight, but we had a couple comments last meeting during our legislative new bills conversation about being a little bit more proactive and maybe establishing a legislative identity, forming a group to have, just more conversations, being more ready for those conversations with legislators, and maybe just expressing what our views are going into the session. Well, Rich Morrow and I, we've been kind of battering this about for quite some time about forming a legislative committee of the board. And this might be an opportunity to consider that. So what Rich and I are going to put our heads together, as well as the other division directors, and come up with a template or a structure for your consideration. I don't think we'll bring it next month, but maybe, in the summer that we'll bring it. And hopefully, if you all agree with that, we'll get that finalized and members finalized by the end of summer, and have it ready to go by September when the legislature is starting to gear up. But it's a great opportunity. I'm quite frankly, we struggle sometimes about what bills to bring before you and what not. I think we kind of lend ourselves more on less is better for an agency like us. We've got CCI and CML and all those associations that are really geared towards really aggressive in the legislature. And I just think it means more if there are bills that we really want to jump in on, if we're a bit more discriminatory in which ones we choose. So anyway, we'll talk more about that, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware that we're having internal conversations, and we think is a great idea. And so stay tuned on that. The last thing I wanted to mention is, where's Lynette Kelsey? There she is. Lynette, is this officially your last meeting?
Yes, it is actually. Next week, there will be a new police judge in Georgetown.
My word. Listen, on behalf of, I'm sure I speak for the entire board, I want to thank you so very, very much for your many years of service, not only to your community, but to this DRCOG collaborative.
Oh,
just so everybody knows, Lynette's been
go
around
ahead.
a long time, haven't you, Lynette? You've been like
I have.
2015, 2016 timeframe. And,
Yep.
And as you know, she's from Georgetown, which is not just up the street. And I've always been so appreciative of her attendance record. And weather is not an issue. I mean, I know she's a mountain girl, and weather doesn't scare her, but we're so appreciative of all the times that you come down here and done your thing. So thank you so very much. And I hope, if you're in the neighborhood, that you drop by. We're really going to miss you around here.
I'm going to miss this too. It's been a real pleasure, and I've learned so much, and I'm encouraging my alternate and the new police judge to be involved, and I know they're going to do a great job. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And Madam Chair, that's my report.
Thank you, sir. And on behalf of all the directors, Lynette, thank you so much for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, we'll move on with our meeting. Next is public comment. Up to 45 minutes is allocated now for public comment, and each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. If there are additional requests from the public to address the board, time will be allotted at the end of the meeting to complete public comment. The chair requests that there are no public comment on issues for which a prior public meeting has been held before the board. Consent and action items will be immediately after the last speaker. Melinda, do we have anyone with us that would like to speak to the board tonight?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, I am not seeing any hands raised. I'll leave it up to you if you want to leave it open a little longer, or how you would like to proceed.
I'm good. If there's somebody that would like to speak at the public at the very end, we will let them do it at that time. All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda. There are 2 items: the summary for March 19th, 2025 meeting, and the Federal Transit Administrative Section 5310 and Human Services Transportation Set Aside Recommended Projects. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank
Mike
you.
Foster from Superior.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Bud Starker. Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Any opposition out there? It's hard to see all the Hollywood squares, so forgive me if I'm a little late. All right, motion passes. We have a consent agenda that is approved. We'll move on to our action item. The very first one is the discussion of federal year 2026-2029 Transportation Improvement Program. This will be presented by our Transportation Planning and Operations Manager, Mr. Cod Cottrell. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hopefully everyone can hear me. And if so, we'll go ahead and get started here. Oops. So we have two documents this evening for your recommendation. The first being the 2026-2029 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP. On our website, we have Appendix F broken out. This is the individual project descriptions. It is still part of the main document. It's just a very large file, and for easy viewing, we have separated that out. We also have included in your packet this evening the errata sheet adjustments. These are adjustments that staff is suggesting and recommending for approval since the document has been since went out for public comment in early February. And of course, also we have the ozone conformity determination. Before I get started on the actual tip itself, I thought I'd take a minute here and just set some of the context in terms of programming here at DRCOG. First, we have MetroVision, which sets the overall regional vision. This is outlined in themes, outcomes, and objectives. And one of those themes is transportation. And that is the basis for the Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP. This is a document that guides our regional transportation investments over a 20+ year period. It is outlined in several different ways, including a listing of vision projects, a listing of fiscally constrained projects set in different ways. And of course, that all implements, the TIP implements the RTP itself and the projects that are listed. For the TIP is, at least compared to the Regional Transportation Plan, the TIP is a short year, 4-year planning horizon where there's individual projects that are going to be listed with very specific and dedicated funding outlined by year and by funding type. So not only does it contain those awards as funded through DRCOG, but is also going to contain all federal and state funded projects funded by CDOT, RTD, and other local governments. It also includes locally funded projects if it rises to the definition of a regionally significant project for air quality. Per federal law, DRCOG is required to create a new TIP document every 4 years. However, we do produce a new document every 2 years, and this is simply to keep pace with the annual update that CDOT creates, a statewide transportation improvement program, or STIP. However, we do only have major calls every other TIP document, so every other 4 years. And one of the largest takeaways for this 26 to 29 TIP is that we did not conduct any new calls for projects with the development of this TIP. And of course, TIP documents are not just static. Almost monthly, we are bringing amendments of some type to you to keep it active. Because there was no calls for projects conducted, we thought it was important to look back and on those last calls for projects, because many of those calls or many of those projects that were selected during those calls in 2022 and 23 are still in this document as they carry forward. Those calls programmed almost $500 million worth of investments, and it was actually contained over 2 TIP cycles, all the way back from 2022. And of course, we, because of our region's non-attainment status for ozone, we must reduce pollutants. So we do have to look at air quality conformity. And when we look at conformity, it's not for individual projects. It's based on the entirety of what's in the RTP or the TIP for those regional projects. When we went back and looked at all of the new regionally significant projects, or looked at those regionally significant projects that were being included in this 26 to 29 TIP document, we did discover that there was no new additional regionally significant projects being added. So therefore, we did go back and we can still use the current federal emission test for ozone and the statewide greenhouse gas reduction analysis that we had previously done for the 24 to 27 TIP and the current 2050 RTP. So therefore, we did use those past analysis, and we can still say that we have passed those guidelines. Of course, this document did go through a public process. We opened up our public comment process back in February 12th, provided several notices in different formats. So on the drcog.org homepage, on the TIP webpage, and we also created a separate engagement website for comments of these two documents. 2 e-blasts went out, a posting in the Denver Post, and then weekly social media campaigns announcing that there was an public comment process was open. All of this concluded at the March 19th public hearing, your last meeting. So with that, happy to take any comments or questions you may have, but there is a proposed motion here on the screen.
Thank you, sir, for your time. Are there any questions for Mr. Cottrell tonight? I don't see any hands. Would a director like to make the motion tonight?
So moved. Do you want me to read this, Madam Chair?
It's up to you, Director Sherzai.
I move to
I'm
adopt.
sure, yeah, I'm sure it would be good for the record to read it into the record. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. I move to adopt a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-2029 transportation improvement program, including those adjustments contained within the errata sheet and the associated air quality conformity document.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is
Second
Mayor
from Condo.
Starker, and I second.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Thank you very much. All in favor for this motion?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Is there any opposition? Please put your virtual hand up there if we can count. Okay, it looks like it passed. Thank you very much, Todd, for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our discussion of our state legislative issues. I'm sure that May 7th can't come early enough for everyone, but I'm going to turn the floor over to, I think it's Rich. Sir?
Let me see, turning
Oh,
everything.
there you are.
There
There
we
you
go.
are.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good evening. So we have a few things for you. I think we're starting with the status of bills the board has taken positions on previously. And just a couple of things to mention, and I'll also see if Doug wants to jump in at any point. But we had, we've been following the Senate Bill 30, the mode choice bill. And I think you've heard from previous board meetings that a number of the amendments that DRCOG has asked for have been put on that bill, and it is moving forward. I think it's still in appropriation. Some of these things are starting to move quickly now, but the last I checked, it was still in Senate Appropriations Committee. And then, and you can stop me anytime or ask questions, I guess, after I'm done here. Also, I was going to mention Senate Bill 161, the Transit Reform Bill. My understanding is that that is due to be heard on the floor on second reading, I think tomorrow. And Jen Castle, one of our lobbyists, is here to confirm or deny that for me.
That is correct, Rich, and actually so is the mode choice bill. It did
They're
move
both
out
up.
of the Appropriations Committee, yes.
Okay. And there's, again, I think several of the amendments that we've talked with sponsors about have been in that bill. We're still seeking one regarding the Guaranteed Ride Home program that I don't think will be considered tomorrow, but there will be a chance to consider that when the bill gets into the House. And Doug, I don't know if you want to comment on any of those, or we can keep moving on in the interest of time.
Rich, I might just mention, if you want to just provide a little bit more detail on the RTD bill.
Sure.
It was at least suggested that DRCOG would lead the accountability committee.
Yeah, so when the bill was heard in Appropriations Committee, there was discussion obviously about the funding in the bill, which is what the Appropriations Committee does. And it was discussed that I don't have it in front of me. I think it's around $446,000, something like that, that is in the bill to fund. They discuss it as initially as a consultant for the accountability committee, but the discussion was that DRCOG is expected to be that consultant, that the money would go to the Colorado Energy Office and be a pass through to DRCOG. I know that I know that there will be amendments tomorrow to tweak the membership, but I did think it was interesting that they definitely mentioned that the expectation that was that DRCOG would be the administrator, I guess, for that committee.
Yeah, Rich, and Madam Chair, if I may, just add a little bit more detail to that, especially for our new members who might not be aware.
Yeah.
But there was an RTD accountability committee that was formed through the legislature back in, I believe it was 2020. And we facilitated that conversation at the time. So this is a role that we feel very comfortable doing. And quite frankly, as a neutral body, we feel, it's an appropriate role for us. We're certainly thrilled to see that there's some funding associated with this task. So we'll see where it goes. But again, I just wanted to share with you all that it is something we felt very comfortable doing.
The last of the previous bills that I will mention is House Bill 1198. That's the Regional Planning Roundtable Commission bill. I know that the other local government associations have taken an interest in that, and I think proposed amendments. A number of the amendments DRCOG asked for, and really just conversations with the bill sponsors and proponents, and giving our perspective, I think helped to get that bill amended to the point where, as I understand it, the commission itself won't even be brought into existence unless DOLA is able to get gifts, grants, and donations, the buzzword, to fund it, because there's no appropriation from the state. And even then, in order to activate it or to actually engage in a particular project or whatever, there would have to be a specific request from a local government to do so. So there's a lot of ifs for that bill before it would even operate. So those are my updates on those. Are there any other questions about those bills?
Does anybody have any questions for Rich at this time for Amendment D? Attachment D, excuse me. Quiet group tonight. Rich, let's move on
Good.
to Attachment E.
Okay, so we have three new bills. The first one is House Bill 1303. It's described as funding for motor vehicle collision prevention, but it's essentially the new version of the vulnerable road user bill that we discussed before, and that it was PI'd in favor of this bill, which creates an enterprise with funding from fee placed on automobile policies to fund it, but then used for these vulnerable road user projects. I think we're off asking to support it. I know CML supported it. CCI has an amend position. I'm not sure what specific amendment they're seeking, but I do know that CML is supporting the bill. And so maybe I'll stop there. The other two are really more informational anyway, but to see what the board pleasure is on position for 1303.
Thanks
Madam
for
Chair,
Yes, yes,
I
sir.
just weigh in. I'm sorry. I know it's kind of awkward in the
Yeah, it's kind of
virtual
strange
room.
doing this. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I know.
It's like
You think we'd be used to this after so many
Yeah.
years. But I just wanted to add on to that. We are recommending a position of support on this, and the reason why is simply because it aligns with our legislative policy statement and our Vision Zero program, which is which is obviously very near and dear to the board. We're struggling to reduce the number of severe accidents and severe injuries and fatalities in the transportation space, and every little bit helps. So that's where we are with this, but understanding that there is an associated fee.
All right, thank you very much for the information. What I'd like to do is just go one at a time, if that's okay. Doug and Rich, is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, now, does anybody have any questions or comments for 1303 at this time? Director Maurer.
Thank you. I just want to confirm the understanding of this bill. So this fee would be to the policyholder, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I probably won't be able to because I can't support it just because I would have to have, council weigh in on that. Thanks.
Yep. Director Kern.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. So has there been any conversation around that we're not going to be capturing with this bill funding from the really large portion of the drivers that don't carry insurance, but still can be very high risk to that vulnerable population, and that there should be maybe some additional conversation or some modifications to this bill so that it can capture that?
I'm not aware of conversation about that. I don't know if Jen has heard anything elsewhere, but I think they were just looking for a funding source, and this seemed like the way to do it.
But Director Kerr, I mean, that's a question we can certainly raise.
But we can try to find out.
I think it's underestimated the number of uninsured people that we have driving in Colorado is pretty high. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kondo.
Yeah, when Director Kern mentioned that, her previous comment, it caused me to wonder, why do we need to resort to insurance policy carriers to collect the fee? I'm thinking to myself, maybe it should be part of collections for vehicle registration.
I know vehicle registrations are a target many times for funding options. But yeah, I know that I just know that this was negotiated mainly between the bill sponsors who came out of the Transportation Legislative Review Committee and the governor's office. And I see hands up, especially Ron's, who may have some insight as well to add.
Thanks, Rich. Madam Chair, just to speak to the point of, I can't get in the head of the legislators and the drafters of the bill. However, my understanding is because they're creating an enterprise to collect and then distribute the funding through grants to address safety projects, the basis for the fee is that those projects that the fund will invest in to reduce crashes will over time reduce insurance costs because there are fewer crashes. So I think that's why the tie to an insurance surcharge fee to fund the enterprise, that connection between crashes, the reduction of crashes, and insurance.
Thank you, Ron. I'm going to look to Commissioner Kerr.
Great, thank you. Yeah, last year, a very similar bill was done looking more at the registration fees and kind of doing it based on weight of vehicle, which actually there is quite a correlation between danger to people on roadways involved in a crash based on weight. But part of the movement over into making this an insurance rate connection rather than the registration was, as Ron just said. So that has been part of the conversation of doing it as registration, but it was decided to move over to insurance.
Thank you, sir. Director Barrett, did you have a question?
No, I was going to say very similar things. So Please,
Okay,
I'll cede my time.
okay, thank you. Director Kern.
Thanks. I just had another comment. If we're going to be looking at this, or if the legislative branch is going to be looking at this, and we're tying it to insurance, is there some accountability that people who have higher risk of accidents and so may actually be more of the cause of this and are we weighing that and they have to pay more into this versus somebody with a perfect, non-accident driving record?
Not that I've seen.
Commissioner
Okay.
Kern.
I'm just,
You may have
I'm
an
seeing the
answer.
lack of balance in this bill. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. While that's not in the bill, that's very much what insurance companies already do. And if you have too many crashes, they will not insure you anymore. So, I know that goes back to your previous point of people who aren't insured, but again, I think there's the Venn diagram of people who aren't insured and the people who aren't registered and the people who are just out there driving around with their 20-year-old Texas license plates. I know our sheriff has been trying to address that, but a single bill isn't going to be able to answer every single thing out there. But my opinion is that this bill sets up an enterprise that will help reduce crashes around the state of Colorado, and that it's a good first step.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion that we can address?
I move that DRCOG support 1303.
Okay, will there be a second on the floor?
Second.
Thank you very much. May I first have directors that must abstain tonight first, and put your virtual hands up so we can get a count of that. I see 7 total. Melinda, do you see 7? 8, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a virtual hand, Eric.
Oh, okay.
I see.
Here we go. Hold on. There's a few more rolling in. I just want to make sure. Okay, now I'm seeing 11. Does that sound right to everyone?
And Miss Josie, Director Cockrell said her virtual hand disappeared, but she's abstaining.
Okay, so then that would bring us to 12.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of course.
You erase all those hands down, and then we'll ask for support of the motion. Please put your hands up for support of the motion. Oh, I should put my hand up too.
Melinda, how many voting members do we have?
We have 34, and we'll need 15 for a vote of support.
Actually, Melinda, I think that's 16. It's 15.33.
Oh, my apologies. I must have done the math wrong.
Okay. Keep them up.
Okay.
This is Brian from Lafayette. My hand's up, even though you don't see it up.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing 13 with Chair Whitlow. So what you're seeing, Melinda?
I see 11 and then 12 with Brian not being able to raise his hand. Yeah, so I'm seeing 12 for in favor.
Well, I think Chair Whitlow, your hand is up.
Yep, I see 13.
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies. I see what you're saying now. I thought your virtual hand was raised. Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
well,
13.
All right, so we have 13 for support. We don't have that amount. I would like to have those hands come down, and those for opposed, so we can make sure everybody is counted.
So we have 2 opposed. Is that what I'm seeing?
I see 2.
Yep, that is what I am seeing as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that. It fails. And so we will ask for another motion to either amend or oppose
Or monitor, we can
or
monitor.
monitor. We could do monitor. How about that?
Yeah.
Would someone like to make the motion to monitor?
I'll make the motion to monitor.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. That's Commissioner Kerr and Director Starker. Okay. The same goes for the 12 to abstain. Those in favor of the monitor,
Madam
I'm
Chair.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
we may ask for abstentions again, just in case that
Okay.
that changes.
Okay. All right. Again, let's go for abstain first. I have 6,
And Josie Cockrell is 7.
7.
Zane,
Yeah, we have Zane over as well.
Okay, so that's 8. I don't know, I have to do math so much tonight. All right, let's roll. Is everybody okay with 8? Melinda, Doug, okay with 8?
Yep, works for me.
Okay, so everyone that's in favor of monitor, please raise your hand.
This is Brian from Lafayette. I'm in favor. My hand's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Melinda, I'm seeing 20, 21 with
Oh, did it go? Oh, there we go. Yep, I'm seeing 21 as well.
Okay. 21. For the monitor, please lower your hands and we'll go to oppose. Thanks everyone for your time tonight on this. I see no hands raised for oppose. All right. So with that, the motion is passed by, we will monitor House Bill 13, I've got lost my track, 1303. All in favor, say aye. Oh, never mind, we already did all that, sorry. Catching you off guard, sorry. All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much, everyone, for that. And we'll move on to the next one on the list there, Rich, go ahead.
yeah, actually the other two bills, we are asking a position of monitor, but I'd have to say that, these are mainly on here for your informational purposes, because these were what they call orbital bills with the long bill. And so I think they've already passed. Isn't that right, Jen?
They have, yes. They're waiting
yeah.
to get a conference committee this week. Yep.
But they reflect what you may have heard in other venues or read in any stories about the budget, the big hit that transportation took this year. And our staff added some comments explaining some of the detail of those. And I think they're probably also at work diving into more of the specifics.
Yeah,
of these
Rich.
DRCOG projects. So yeah, Doug.
Rich, can I jump in here? Yeah, as Rich mentioned, these are orbital bills to the long bill, of course. And if Madam Chair, if we may, I might just ask Ron Papsdorf just to weigh in on these. And these, despite they say House bills, they're Senate bills, just FYI. I just want to make a point of saying.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. That was an
Yeah, no
old-
worries.
Yeah.
So if we may, if Ron, we could have Ron just weigh in on these, just to share with you some of the details because they are transportation related. Mr. Papsdorf?
Thank you, Doug. Madam Chair, thank you, board members, Ron Papsdorf, Transportation Planning and Operations Division Director, for the record. So yeah, I think Rich has laid out that framework. These are bills that sort of need to be passed to actualize the the long bill that's already been approved and is moving forward, and reflects a number of general fund reductions out of some existing cash funds or previously planned transfers to cash funds in order to help fill that budget gap of about $1 billion this budget cycle. So I'll start with the Senate Bill 257, which has a whole lot of kind of canceled or transfers from cash funds back to the general fund. And there's a long list of them. And I think CML and CCI have done pretty good jobs of sort of summarizing the majority of those transfers back to the general fund, some of which, impact local jurisdictions in different ways. I'll mainly point out there's some reductions in funding to DOLA and for affordable housing programs and housing related components that you'll be interested in, but aren't as directly related to sort of DRCOG services. So I'll focus on sort of the transportation piece of that bill. Under Senate Bill 260, there were provisions, because there were some bonding portions of Senate Bill 260 to upfront funding for projects in CDOT's 10-year plan. There were general fund transfers to CDOT in order to help pay some of that debt service and the cost of delivering those projects. Senate Bill 257 reduces those planned transfers for fiscal year 25 and 26. So starting July 1 this year and July 1 next year, reduces what were planned to be $100 million a year transfers to CDOT from the general fund down to $36 million this year, and then $50,500,000 next year. And then for fiscal years 29 through 2031, it increases transfers from what was planned at $82.5 million up to $100 million. So they're basically sweeping some planned general fund transfers for this year and next year and deferring them and sort of making up that funding in future years for that piece. It does add a new $61 million transfer for fiscal year 2032 as part of that sort of makeup for those projects that'll be delivered by CDOT through the 10-year plan. So essentially it's sort of delaying funding and probably delaying some projects, although I haven't seen anything yet from CDOT in terms of what those implications will be or how they'll manage that. Also, for all of you, it's important to note the bill also eliminates what was a committed $7 million a year transfer from the general fund to the Revitalizing Main Streets grant program. And I think several of you around the region have been successful in the past in securing grants through the Revitalizing Main Streets program for transportation improvements. This eliminates those planned transfers from this year through 2031 for that program. So those funds will not be available. Those are the transportation funding components of Senate Bill 257. Happy to try to answer any questions, but no guarantees.
Since it's on the agenda and it's, it's already kind of finished, I would still ask for if there's any questions from the directors or comments. All right, we'll move on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And I just want real quick.
Hey, Rich, sorry, Madam Chair, I do want to just talk about Senate Bill 264 if I
You didn't
could.
get to that. Good.
Sorry, Rich.
Yeah.
So Senate Bill 264 has a much larger and more direct impact on DRCOG, and this bill has passed through the House and the Senate. I think today it got signed by the Senate President and the Speaker of the House and sent to the governor for signature. So this bill is essentially done. I don't expect the governor is going to veto this bill. But the nuts of this bill is that, so again, as part of Senate Bill 260, there were in addition to the fees, principally the retail delivery fee portion in Senate Bill 260 that helps fund the Multimodal Options Fund program, of which 85% each year gets allocated to local transportation planning regions, including DRCOG, for allocation to local multimodal projects. there's also a general fund component to help fund that multimodal options fund program. So this bill eliminates or sweeps back $71.4 million of previous general fund transfers to the multimodal options fund, all to the local share. So all has to be absorbed by the local share piece of multimodal options fund. Based on our calculations, so DRCOG, if the local share gets approximately 58% of the funding, so our estimate is that will be a hit to DRCOG of about $42 million of funds that we have already allocated to projects through the TIP. So we're still trying to get additional information about how we can accommodate that kind of reduction in projects that we've allocated funds to over the next several years, whether we'll be able to absorb that through deferring and delaying projects that have been awarded funds, or if we're going to have to straight out cancel some projects. It's going to be a bit of a challenge. That, just for context, from when the Multimodal Options Fund was created through 2027, which is the end of the current TIP, we have allocated approximately $90 million of MMOF funds, Multimodal Options Funds, to projects in this region through 2027. So this represents nearly half of those funds. So it will have significant impacts on projects that have been awarded to you. We have to do a lot of detailed digging into sort of which projects have been contracted, which projects have encumbered funds, how we can try to make those projects whole. Many of those projects, we combined funding sources, not just the state multimodal options fund money, but also some federal money that we allocate through the TIP to help achieve the 50% match requirement for those multimodal options funds. So sorry to get into a lot of depth there, but I think it's really important for you to understand the potential ramifications and know that we're digging into that, and we'll have a lot more information in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Ron, for that great update. Questions for Ron on 264? All right, thanks for the update. Keep us abreast of what's happening with that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so I don't see anything else on this list that we have, right, Director X? We don't have any more on Rich?
Right.
There's
yeah.
nothing new as of tonight. Okay,
Not
thank you
that
very
I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Unless Jen has something. Okay, and I do want to just take a quick second to recognize our lobbyist, Jen, who's here tonight, and Ed, who couldn't be here tonight, for really doing a lot of great work helping us push forward our amendments on these particularly on these transportation bills, and helping to arrange meetings with sponsors and so forth. It's been really valuable.
Well, thanks for the recognition. Thank you, Jen, for joining us tonight. Did you have any other comments, Jen?
Just happy day 99.
I was going to say, and it can't get over soon enough.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Again, thank you for your time on this, really, staff, for putting this together for us tonight and keeping us abreast of what's happening down in the state capitol. So thank you again. We're going to move on to our informational briefings tonight. We appreciate the time. The first one is our corridor planning program update by our manager from the Transportation Planning Operations, Nora Kern. Ma'am, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Let me just share my screen. And while that pulls up, yes, my name is Nora Kern, and I am the program manager for DRCOG's sub-area and project planning team. And hopefully that's showing correctly. Let me start the presentation. There we go. Okay, looks like it's hopefully coming up. Thank you for the thumbs up, someone. So today I just wanted to give a quick update on one of our newer planning programs, the corridor planning program, and also give you some advance notice about an upcoming call for letters of interest in case your jurisdiction is interested in having a project in this program in the coming years. So just a quick refresher for those who haven't heard of this or who maybe weren't around last time I spoke about it. This is a relatively new planning program that's really focused on helping advance the projects and priorities in the regional transportation plan. So it's kind of unique and new in that DRCOG is taking a little bit more of a leadership role on these plans. And so really helping identify plans where there's maybe need for additional regional support or leadership, or plans where maybe just there hasn't been enough projects where not enough work has been done yet. So being able to lend some additional capacity. So the only projects that are eligible for this program are those that are specifically identified in the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. In particular, you can see those 4 categories: the BRT corridors, the corridor transit projects, the arterial safety regional Vision Zero projects, and the multimodal corridor projects are the only ones that are eligible for this program. So we started with the smaller pilot in 2022 and had some initial projects, one on Alameda Avenue and one on South Boulder Road. And since then, we've kind of grown and continued the program. And I'll talk a little bit here in a moment about some of our ongoing projects. I did just want to give you a background on the current structure of the program. So in 2024, it became a formal TIP set aside. So it's in the 2024 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program. There's $3 million allocated. It is one of the newer set asides, and it's got a slightly different format where the funds are actually allocated to DRCOG or awarded to DRCOG. And then we manage projects. We manage the funding, we manage the procurement, we manage the consultants when they come on board, in close partnership with both regional agencies and with the local member governments. The projects themselves are nominated by local agencies or by regional agencies, but we kind of help take some of the administrative burden off of getting these projects going. And it's also helpful for some projects where maybe they really are regional projects. So it doesn't make sense for any single local jurisdiction to take the lead. We can kind of help step in and lend some leadership on those projects. So the first 2 years of the Transportation Improvement Program, 2024 and 2027, we selected 2 projects for the program. The first is the Colfax Bus Rapid Transit Next, Colfax BRT Next. And this is a really exciting project that we are doing in partnership with a bunch of folks, primarily Aurora and CDOT and RTD, but also Adams and Arapahoe County. My colleague Jacob Rieger is the DRCOG project manager. This corridor is identified for bus rapid transit in the 2020 to 2030 staging period, but it's essentially up until now has been a line on the map. There hasn't been a lot of work done yet to figure out what it is or what it's going to look like. So we are performing an alternatives analysis on this corridor, starting at where the kind of current BRT project in Colfax ends at I-225, and then going all the way out to around E-470. The goal will be to develop a locally preferred alternative that can then be taken into future phases of project development. Just a quick peek at the timeline. This project started in the fall. We did select a team in partnership with Aurora, a team led by Nelson Nygaard. So over the fall and winter, kind of gotten things off the ground, developed a purpose and need as well as goals and objectives document to kind of lay the groundwork for the planning. And then we're now in our first phase of engagement and really finishing up our draft existing conditions document to really understand all the transportation issues in this kind of part of the region. We are planning on shifting to developing those alternatives and identifying that locally preferred one towards the end of the year and hoping to wrap up at the end of this calendar year. This project does now have a website and is kind of in full steam. So if you have additional questions, we can definitely try to help answer those or direct you kind of to the right staff for those. My next, if I can get my slides to advance, our second project that we're currently in the middle of, again, through the corridor planning set aside, is a safety study on Sheridan Boulevard. This is a very regional project. It's extending from I-76 in the north to US 285. There are 6 local jurisdictions along this corridor and 3 different counties, and it's the CDOT corridor, and of course has RTD bus service. So I think it was a great opportunity for DRCOG to come in and help really coordinate between all these jurisdictions on reducing crashes. It is unfortunately on our high injury network, and a large portion of this corridor is on the regional critical corridors network. So we know, unfortunately, there are a lot of crashes. So the goal is to identify projects to reduce serious and fatal crashes in partnership with all of the local and regional partners on this corridor. Similar timeline for this one. We started in the fall. Since then, we've been really focused on understanding what's going on the corridor, both through a first phase of engagement to understand kind of those lived experiences, as well as really diving deep into the crash data and other transportation data on the corridor. Over the summer, developing recommendations and alternatives, and then hoping to finalize an implementation plan by the end of the year. And a big piece of that is going to be, again, kind of identifying which of the 7 or 8 different agencies that touch Sheridan in this stretch make the most sense to take those projects into the next phase of development. So just a quick snapshot for those 2 programs. Both are on our engagement website, and we'd be happy to talk more if you have specific questions about them. But I also did want to give a quick preview of an upcoming call for projects for the second half of the corridor set aside, which is the 2026 to 2027 funds. So we do have the second half of the 3 million, so $1.5 million available. I should also note, I don't think I did up top, there is no local match for these funds, which is another component of making it as easy as possible for our partner agencies to work with us on these projects. We are using CDOT toll credits to provide the local match. We will have a call for letters of interest that's going to run through the middle of June. Those letters of interest must be submitted by a local agency or a regional partner agency. And the projects that are eligible, they must be listed in the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. So we do have a spreadsheet on our website if you're curious which projects are eligible for this program. There are a couple exceptions of all the projects in the Regional Transportation Plan. It does have to be one of the regionally funded projects, and we are excluding the limited access roadways, trails and projects that have moved to construction. The funds we have are planning only, so we're not doing any design or any construction work. Excuse me. So those letters of interest are due in June. We'll then have a selection panel review those and decide which projects are the best fit for the program. And then we'll probably be coming back to you in, I think, August to hopefully approve the recommended projects. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions either about the specific projects or about the program generally.
Thank you, Nora. Questions or comments for Nora tonight? Ron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to jump in front of any board members, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge Nora and her team, Lauren and Brittany. They've really stepped up and taken on the challenge of starting this new program on behalf of DRCOG and in partnership with you and your staff. I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. It's kind of new ground for us to step into the space of doing this kind of big corridor-wide planning work to help advance priorities that you all have established in the regional transportation plan. So I just wanted to thank Nora and her team for all their work in this. It's really groundbreaking for us, and I think a real strong advancement for DRCOG and the service to you.
Thank you for the generous words for Nora and her team, and hopefully we'll get those letters into you all. So thank you very much, Nora, for your presentation yesterday and today. So thank you very much, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll move on now to Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act IIJA Regional Grant Navigator 2025 update. I do believe I saw Dr. Flo on the screen, but I'm not sure if who is taking this on.
Okay. Well, thank you,
There
Madam
you
Chair.
are.
So it's my pleasure that earlier in the evening, the Finance and Budget Committee did pass 2 resolutions. The first one to accept year 3 funding in the IIJA Regional Grants Navigator Program of up to $100,000. And then the second resolution was to extend the contract with the entity that has been doing the regional grant navigation for DRCOG, WSB. And joining us tonight is Paul Jasitis, who is the lead on that, and Amy Frederick, who's been very active on our behalf in the Regional Grants Navigator program as well. And we thought it was good timing to provide an update on what's happened in the last couple of years and what important milestones that we've hit and what's the return on investment that we're pretty proud of in this region. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul Jasitis, and Paul has a very short presentation and slides that will give you some of the interesting numbers. So we'll go from there.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right. Thanks, Flo, for that introduction. So once again, my name is, and hopefully thumbs up if you can see the presentation all right. All right, perfect. So anyway, my name is Paul Jasitis. I'm with company WSB. We've been under contract for a couple of years now with working for Flo and with DRCOG, providing regional grant navigator services to the communities within DRCOG. So, and, you know, really mostly towards the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, you know, and of course, IIJA is otherwise known as the bipartisan infrastructure law. So, once again, we're under some funding through the governor's office. The goal of the program really was maximize the amount of grant funding coming into the state of Colorado. And we're just pleased to give you all an update tonight. So just a little bit about WSB. We're a full service consulting firm, mostly transportation engineering, and that's why we're doing this work for DRCOG. Anyway, here's our regional grant navigator team. I'm leading the team. With us tonight is Amy Frederick. She really wanted to speak to the team, but she lost her voice because she's got that cold so many of us other people have had. Amy's our Senior Director of Sustainability. I brought her onto the program just because a lot of the grants we dealt with over the past couple of years had a strong sustainability resiliency aspect. We've also got Sean Poe. Some of you may know Sean. He was the city engineer at Commerce City. Sean really understands municipal funding, grant funding, and how municipalities think. So I thought he'd be really good to help out, and he's really been pretty valuable with that. We've also got a bunch of people at the company. That's all they do is grant type funding. It's a thing in the consulting world. So Amber Adams, if there's trouble trying to find a grant type that fits a project, we use Amber for that. She writes grants. We've got Matt Gibbs. He's our resiliency specialist. You know, once again, up until recently, a lot of those grants had that aspect of resiliency still involved. And you know, hopefully we'll still see some of that in the future as well. And then Melisha Platt, grants and funding specialist, same kind of thing. She's just there as a resource if we get a tough question. We're also partnered with Peak Consulting Group. They're a woman-owned business. We team with them a lot, but they really understand NEPA, pre-NEPA planning, environmental design, those kind of things. They're available for technical help, underserved communities, that kind of thing. And as you know, depending on the type of community you're dealing with, you have all different kinds of expertise. So we wanted to assemble a team that could help with complicated technical questions too. We typically don't write the grants for people. We could do that. There is a free service through the governor's office that you can apply for, and they can write the grant for you. But if they won't fund it, we can do it for you. Anyway, you know, just skipping to what's really important, you know, the whole idea was bring in money for the state of Colorado, and DRCOG's done well with that. City of Golden got a Protect grant. By the way, Protect is on freeze right now, but that was a great project, $24 million for Lena Gulch. That was a project that could flood Highway 40. I was able to call up CDOT and kind of plead with them, like, this is a good project to put their weight behind, and they did that. Gilpin County, Boulder County, they put in for capital projects funding, got a grant of $7 million, about a 50% match for broadband in underserved communities within Gilpin and Boulder County. City of Thornton got a raise, which is now a build grant for $25 million for 104th Avenue. City of Westminster got an EECBG. That's a Energy and Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. A lot of acronyms here. Sorry about that. For doing some energy programs, about $250,000. Town Alliance has been active with a lot of grants. They got a BRIC grant for $164,000 for stormwater. BRIC is on hold right now, or maybe won't be coming back. And that's created a lot of consternation for communities across DRCOG. Anyway, there's still, even with all that and those kind of questions out there, there's still a lot of grants that we're working with these communities on. Superior's been very active. They were hit by a big fire, as we all know. Safer Streets for All is something they're looking at. They're partnering across communities with Boulder County. Once again, Safer Streets for All. That's still a very active grant. It's actually open right now and coming due soon. Arapahoe County had a Protect grant. They were busy writing that Protect grant. Protect then got frozen. They decided to just finish off with that grant, thinking that a lot of the stuff could be harvested for any kind of future grant opportunity. And I think that's a reasonable way to go if you have the appetite for a little bit of risk. They have, that's a great project they have. They have a lot of undersized culverts on the Eastern Plains. Adams County has a lot of that. And they've had flooding, they've had fatalities when cars have floated away. And so they felt strong enough, like, let's position the county for funding when hopefully additional FEMA funding becomes available. Federal Heights, we're actually writing a Protect grant, same thing. They wanted to get to a point where they could compete for grants. Sometimes the grants kind of come out of nowhere, so it's good to kind of position yourself for that. Once again, it's a personal decision, a municipality's decision, but some communities have decided to do that. Commerce City, they've submitted for a RAISE grant a couple different times. That's now Build. So they've now submitted Build for the same project, East 88th Avenue. And then Mavericks Broadband, a internet service providers, been partnering with Clear Creek County, Jefferson County, Gilpin County, once again, to try to bring broadband into communities that do not have broadband. And then, it's not all about just, we're going to go for this grant. A lot of times, and I'll use Superior as a good case study, we've met with Superior a number of times in other communities nearby. And we had a great 2-hour brainstorming session with them. We brought in 6 different departments. We all talked about what their priorities were for projects they wanted to accomplish, what kind of grants could fit those priorities. And then what we learned is going back with a certain cadence to bring that group back together is really effective, because you have to think about it a little bit. Hey, we have this list. Every community has a long list of projects they want to do. Which one can we win a grant with? What's the most likely opportunity for doing that? We get that question all the time, and it takes a lot of conversation before we finally settle on that. And, even if we don't have IRA or IIJA grant opportunities that fit their projects, we're still aware of a lot of other type of funding. And we certainly will pass that information on when we, even though we're not exactly contracted for that, we'll certainly pass the information on to that community. Once again, we're still working with a lot of communities, even in this uncertain time. Clear Creek County, they've kind of paused a little bit, but they are really interested in wildfire solutions. I mean, kind of obviously flooding, other safety issues. Westminster looking at EV charging, resilience, workforce development, water services, community development. I mean, they just have a lot of good ideas. Edgewater, it's a small community, but a focus on ADA for sidewalks and park improvements, things like that. So I won't go through them all, but there's really a lot out there, and there's, these aren't bad projects. So no matter what you hear, these are good projects that people have gone for. At least that's my opinion. So anyway, kind of mentioned it a bunch of times already. A lot of challenges out there right now, causing a little bit of consternation. So we are working with the county right now, and they've decided to just kind of pause while we work through kind of how these grants are all going to go forward. Like I say, some of them, like Safer Streets for All, that's active, but BRIC's canceled. You know, and then there's some simple things like having some trouble. Well, it's actually not simple. They can't access the portals that are out there. That's taking time, causing a lot of uncertainty. And so one of the things we really want to do in year 3 is get that information. We're working with other grant navigators, the governor's office, all of our information that we get through our company to just make sure you all have that latest information. And that's our year 3 work plan. Really, number one is just try to get that information out there. Keep talking to the communities about what kind of opportunities are out there that are worth pursuing. Get that latest information to them. But we are interested. If you think we're missing stuff, certainly happy to take feedback that you might have. Just get a hold of me or ask a question tonight. That's all good. And then, you know, as a big 1,500 person engineering company, we have a lot of capability. And so if you want to take advantage of that, feel free to contact me as well. So anyway, I know I went fast there. That's kind of an update for where we are in the program. We're excited to get year 3 funding, and please reach out to me or anybody on my team, and we will be happy to come talk to you and your group or the people that you work with, and try to help you find grant funding for your community. So with that, I guess I would open it to questions.
Thank you, Paul, very much and welcome again. Flo, did you have any additional remarks?
No, Madam Chair, thank you. Paul and his team have been great to work with, and we're really happy with the results thus far. And depending on what happens with some of the freezes on programs and some that are currently open, we hope that we have an even greater success rate and return on investment on this program for DRCOG and the region.
Thank you very much. Director Barrett, do you have a question or comment?
Just a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. When you say that like the BRIC grant is canceled, does that mean that the folks who have funds, if they cancel the program, does that mean those funds will not be contracted? Are they canceled?
I think that's kind of the magic question. And there's been some problems. I don't know if it's been exactly BRIC. If you go to the BRIC website right now, you'll see it says something like, we've stopped this wasteful program, something like that. So are you going to get reimbursed? You know, I think that's something we'll have to check in. I haven't heard any anecdotal stories about people not getting reimbursed for that particular grant, but I'm happy to investigate that for you.
No, thank you. I just was thinking about how it's a little concerning for even other communities that have different kinds of grants. How will we get reimbursed for our grants as well? So just trying to pay attention. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, feel free to reach out if you have questions. We'd be happy to sit down with you and go through that.
Amy put some information in the chat, so if you all want to go and take a look at that, and then we'll move on to Director Holly Rogan. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Whitlow, and thank you, Paul, so much for the presentation. We're kind of holding our breath about the BRIC grant too. Is it going to come back? Is it not going to come back? Director Mead, it's a really tenuous place to be to know whether we should expend funds or not expend funds. But I wanted to just, Paul, let you and let the whole DRCOG board and staff know what a pleasure it has been for our staff to work with you and your team. You've helped us so much, and we're so appreciative, and we're appreciative of DRCOG for making this service available. So I would just encourage folks to take advantage of this great resource. It has been very helpful, especially because we have very limited staff. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Holly. Any other questions for Paul, Flo, and the team? All right. Again, thank you, Paul, very much for your time and your team. Flo, thank you very much for introducing them, and we'll move on to our informational item of committee reports. The first one is from the State Transportation Advisory Committee, and I will turn the floor over to Ron Papsor for an update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Byrd was there, but I think he's not on the call this evening, so I'll do a quick update. There were 2 action items that stack on April 3rd. Excuse me. The first one was the annual allocation of rural planning grants to the transportation planning region. So in addition to being the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the urban part of DRCOG, we are also the Greater Denver Transportation Planning Region that encompasses the entire boundary of DRCOG. So we are allocated this year $10,000 of statewide state planning and research funds. Those are federal funds that CDOT receives to help support our work, represent you all, including Clear Creek and Gilpin County, the rural parts of the DRCOG area that are not currently in the MPO, at the statewide transportation advisory committee, and support a little bit of our staff time. It doesn't cover the entirety of our staff time that we spend in those areas, but it is a little bit of funding that CDOT provides to us to help support that work. And then the second action item was the allocation or award of funds to Safe Routes to Schools projects. So this program is also federally funded from a program funds for improving safety and safe access to schools in local communities. The most of it is infrastructure improvement projects. There is an educational component to those grants as well. 4 projects were awarded within the DRCOG region, are recommended for award through STAC that will go to the Transportation Commission for action. I think they did that today. There were 5 applications from jurisdictions within DRCOG. 4 were recommended for award, 2 in Denver, 1 in Lyons, and 1 in Lakewood. So those moved forward out of STAC with a positive recommendation. That would conclude my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ron. We'll move on to Metro Mayor's Caucus. Mayor Starker, do you have an update?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. The Metro Mayor's Caucus met on the 6th of April, and we had a very informative discussion and presentation from the Colorado Secretary of State's office highlighting the security techniques for corporations and how there are some features that they have that will make your online presence with the Secretary of State more secure. We also had a presentation from Katie Roach, the Program Director for America 250 and Colorado 150 Commission. Next year in 2026 is the 150th anniversary for the state of Colorado. They've got some great programs coming up, and we'd really like everyone to become engaged in that. So we had a great discussion there. And then we had a lively and informative discussion about local items going on with our state legislature. So it was a very well attended and productive meeting, and that will conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. There is no report for the Metro Area County Commissioners. They meet this Friday. I'll move on to Advisory Committee on Aging. I'm not sure from staff who will be taking that.
That would be me. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm here.
hello, Jayla. How are you?
Hello.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to see you all tonight. The Advisory Committee on Aging reviewed the recommendations of the AAA Funding Subcommittee for the 2026 service contract renewals that were forwarded to the Finance and Budget Committee. Rich provided a legislative update. We reviewed the aging bills. We talked about state budget cuts. Area agencies on aging across the state lost about $2.5 million. For us, that meant about $400,000. I know in many of your worlds, that's not a lot of money, but that's a lot of money for the AAA. And we also talked about the changes and challenges that are happening at the federal level. The one that's most concerning right now is we have not received our federal budget for 2025 yet, and we don't know when that's coming. So state funds, are going down, and we usually kick into federal funds to continue those services. We're not exactly sure when those monies are going to come. So that's a little bit nerve-wracking. I talked about how we're accommodating those state losses in particular. We had one manager resign and move on to, actually she went to CDOT, and I decided not to fill that position and did a reorganization, focusing doing cross-training of our staff so that, you know, many of our staff have to be certified. Like if you're providing information on Medicare, you have to be certified. So we're getting people certified. My staff are doing different jobs and helping out when there's a big demand for service. We're looking at ways to cut costs. We're pretty lean, but we're mighty. I mean, we're still doing a really good job. We had the Colorado director of AARP come out or come to our meeting and talk about policy priorities at the federal level and at the state level. The federal priorities are preserving Social Security, Medicare, and supporting the Older Americans Act. At the state level, they're a huge supporter of area agencies on aging and really trying to help family caregivers. And then finally, we had a presentation about Ride Alliance. This program has been resurrected, let's say, with new funding that we got from a SMART grant. This is a trip exchange hub. Okay, so the goal is to better coordinate trip requests with trip service providers and streamline the reporting that it takes for these trips. You know, the older population is growing and demand doesn't go away even if the funds do. So we have got to figure out how to serve people better. Last year, we had over 11,000 denials of trips because we didn't have the capacity. So we're trying to figure out how to maximize the current resources and look at cost-effective solutions. And this is one of those programs that we're really hoping goes forward. This is the first part of the grant. It was over $900,000. There's a second opportunity to apply for funding, which then really puts into practice all the things that we're doing in this planning phase now. That's my report.
Thank you so much for being here tonight and for your report. I will move on. There is no E470 authority report or a CDOT report tonight, and I will finalize our community reports with our RTD district representative, Mr. Soroy. Sir?
Thank you, Chair. So a couple things to update folks on. We have just released our call for partnerships program, call for projects. So one of the things with that really funds kind of service gaps kind of in the local community, and other things associated with service. One thing to note about this year's call is we've increased the funding. So we went from $2 million a year to $3 million a year. So there's more funding available. So hopefully people will look at that and apply for those funds. Also wanted to note that we do have our Title VI program out for public review. We are updating that, the policies in that program associated with our triennial, which is our every 3-year review process with the Federal Transit Administration. Last, I'll talk about a couple things. One related to our safety. We have had a real pretty dramatic decrease in safety, and I think we just come out with some reports that between 2022 and now, we've had a 60% reduction in calls from our police. So we're really trying to, again, work on that because we know that's been an issue with our customer base and with our stakeholders. So wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we are really working and we're seeing the results. So with that, I will end my update.
Thank you, sir, very much. I made a mistake. I forgot Doug Rex in the Regional Air Quality Control. Sir, you
Can't
can now
believe it.
give us a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much. The RAC had their regular meeting on April 4th. The majority of time was taken up by an announcement of the State Air Pollution Control Division that they are going to be requesting voluntary reclassification from serious to severe non-attainment under the 2015 ozone standard. We are already in Severe for the 2008 standards. So there's two standards that are still in play in this. So we had quite a bit of conversation about it. And the main reason why the state decided to go this route is because the modeling that we're seeing right now is not showing us, we're not able to attain the standard according to the model. So by reclassifying to severe, it provides some additional time for mitigation strategies that have been passed through legislation to really kick in 27 and 28 timeframe. So the next SIP is required by 2032. So that's the state implementation plan, the plan that shows us or the way that we're going to get back into attainment. So we won't have to submit that till 2032. There was some real concerns that if we had to submit photochemical modeling that did not show us getting back into compliance by 2026, that we could really face some pretty severe sanctions, including federal transportation funding reduction, or so anyway, that was a decision. I think the board was we had a pretty robust conversation about it. I think we were pleased by kind of the calculated decision that the state made on this, and I think it will really provide us some time to really dig deeper and get a better understanding of what really moves the needle, because right now we're really struggling to find the emission savings. So stay tuned. We'll have more presentations associated with that in the coming years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and I apologize, Doug, again.
Oh, please.
Before we move into the administrative item, we're going to go right back to our Executive Director, Doug Rex, and he needs to update us about the public announcement this morning at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I feel terrible about this, but I was getting texts during when the chair was reading the announcement of the public hearing for next month, and we jumped the gun on it. So the public, so we will begin our 45-day review comment period. Will open on May 4th. And the public hearing will then be on June 18th, not at our May board meeting. So we'll do it all again next month, I guess is what I'm telling you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Hopefully everybody took note of that. Next is our meeting is going to be May 21st. Are there any matters by members tonight? I do appreciate everyone joining us. Okay, well, with that, it's 8:07. I will ask that this meeting be adjourned, and we will see you in May. The work session is coming up, so everyone have a good night, stay safe, and thank you again for joining us. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.